Hello, welcome back to Dadpuzzles. Today we're very fortunate to have Aditya Nagrath. He's amazing dad of two, and so he knows all about parenting. And we are very fortunate to have him join us because not only about parenting, we want to chat a little bit about his project, which is mathematics. This is something that has been a I mean, for most of families, it's something that is very important to master. So I'm happy that he's with us and we can get the benefit of learning from him today. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, sir. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a PhD in math computer science from the University of Denver.
Hmm.
Went on to start a contract software engineering company where we put out 50 different applications for 35 different product lines over the course of 7 years. And at the end of that, I decided to create a piece of software
Hmm.
and a company around it
Hmm.
uh, with the mission to empower children with mathematics.
Hmm.
Um, and what we've done since then is we've helped over 175,000 students learn over 200,000 years of mathematics.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You know, initially I remember, you know, growing up, we had I don't know, like in other countries they have these books. Every book they have at the back of it, they have like a table, like table, 1, 2, 3 up to 12, and you have to memorize a certain level. I don't know. Did you get to experience something like this? Like where did you grow up? Did you grow up here or?
Yeah, I grew up here in the United States. I grew up in a town called Pueblo,
Hmm.
Colorado,
Okay, okay.
and like traditional mathematics at that time, 1980s United States education, right?
Right, right,
So,
right, right. Amazing.
but like the deal is that when I got involved with this project, what we began to understand
Hmm.
was that what students are learning is language, right? And
Hmm.
mathematics
Right.
itself, if you consider it as a language,
Hmm.
it becomes actually more important than the rote memorization or the execution of the calculations. So,
Hmm.
like, a demonstration in understanding of addition or multiplication looks like seeing a problem out in the real world or the
Hmm.
equivalent of reading a word problem and
Hmm.
then identifying which operators and how to use them, right? I multiply these two numbers together and that gets me the information that the question is asking for.
Right,
So
right.
it's the application of it. That's the
Hmm.
understanding of it. So that's the communication of it.
Hmm.
And so, if you don't have that, then the memorization of the multiplication tables is a waste of time.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. So for instance, so I guess, it's never too early to start teaching kids. So what do you think is the most critical skill that we should develop, that the kids should have before kindergarten, for instance?
Well, yeah, that's mathematics. So, on average, the average
Hmm.
3 year old can count on one hand, the average 4 year old can count on two hands.
Right.
4 out of 5 students are starting kindergarten unprepared for the kindergarten curriculum.
Hmm.
And what that means is that they don't understand the language of the
Hmm.
numbers well enough to understand the teacher where the curriculum begins. Most of the time, the curriculum begins at counting to 20. So it assumes that the student knows counting to 10 coming in. Now,
Hmm.
this is because of a gap that, before I started this project, I believed the same thing, but that's what it
Hmm.
is this gap.
Hmm.
To kindergarten, counting to 10 is, can you give me 10 things? And the student's able to slide over 10 things and stop on 10.
Right.
But to most parents, counting to 10 is, well, look, they're doing it on two hands. so, so this gap, right, in
Hmm.
understanding, it's a language gap.
Hmm.
What the research shows is that students in preschool
Hmm.
that do more mathematics are better readers, they're better writers, and they're better speakers over time. They perform better in all subjects.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes like if you can get the student at a young age
Mm-hmm.
to understand more mathematics and come into kindergarten understanding the teacher, uh, hopefully in everything, but mainly in mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
then somehow you've set your student on a different trajectory. Like if you look at the graphs in some
Mm-hmm.
of these research papers, the trajectory of learning is different. And it sort of makes sense because there's several things that happen with mathematics
Mm-hmm.
um, that's different than the other subjects. So one is that you're sort of doing more mental gymnastics. Even in the example I gave,
Mm-hmm.
you have to hold the number 10 in your head in order to remember to stop on 10, right? So there's some
Right.
like chewing gum and walking at the same time, but mentally
Right.
going on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And second, there's this societal notion of numeracy or innumeracy or however you want to call it, where I don't have to be a math person, right? It's not that
Mm-hmm.
important.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when the two meet, right, like there's this issue. So, like, if you're willing to compromise in mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you're willing to compromise in everything else. For example, if I'm not a math person, great, fine. Maybe I'm also not a gym person. Right? I don't like math and I don't like going to the gym. And at some
Mm-hmm.
point, why do I have to succeed in anything? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine.
Right.
So these two things together, I don't know, somehow make math special is what it looks like.
Oh, that's amazing. So what do you think? Let's say things that parents can do in terms of activities to foster the love of the numbers.
Well, so this is as simple as just using the language aloud. And
Mm-hmm.
the interesting thing is that the curiosity of the child allows you to do it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the maybe the anxiety of the parent that says, well, the student's not going to understand or the child's not going to understand this language. So
Mm-hmm.
what the research showed was that, and it's even amongst trained teachers, that students
Mm-hmm.
as young as 4 would
Mm-hmm.
exhibit concepts as advanced as division
Mm-hmm.
in a preschool area.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the adult in the room that didn't want to label it as division. Remember, this is how children learn language. We use the language in context,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they pick it up at that age. And so, not using that language is maybe what's preventing them from doing it faster or sooner. And so,
Mm-hmm.
using that language is theoretically the panacea, right? Not being
Awesome.
afraid to do your math out loud, not being afraid to ask them, can you go get me 3 or 4 things, see if they can do it. Not
Right.
being afraid to correct them if it doesn't match the language. It's just definitions. They're not like wrong or incorrect,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like harsh. I mean, I got a lot of comments on my Facebook ads where like
Mm-hmm.
people will
Mm-hmm.
say something like, let them be kids. I mean, yeah, they're still kids.
Right. Right.
They just have to use the words correctly. I
Right.
mean, I do it with other things besides math too, by the
Right. Yeah.
way.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad that you touched the issue about anxiety, which is the main thing that you're focusing on. So, this can happen for like both really kids and adults as well. So I'm glad that you're emphasizing that we should really be vocal about it so that along by us being that, then our kids can learn while we're doing that, correct? That's
Yeah,
amazing. That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. So,
Almost
so,
half of all Americans report having math anxiety, according to the
hmm
surveys
see,
or research or however they gathered that information.
hmm absolutely. And then, okay, so let's say normally, like what are the most causes or triggers of this anxiety? Because, let's say I'm thinking they can have the anxiety maybe because they had failed in the past or something like that. But what are the triggers that really makes them have this anxiety, my friend?
Well, I mean, this is so the math anxiety boils down to the meaning that we associate to the events in our life. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So, what we talk about in the book, Treating Mathematics Anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
is this AI model. So, like, if you look at what the abstract model for an AI looks like
Mm-hmm.
mathematically,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really high level. But this is what's happening: is you have a function that you're training, and you have a set
Mm-hmm.
of inputs, and you have a set of outputs,
Right.
and you have a training function which
Mm-hmm.
alters the function. So this is what it would look like if I draw it. But this same
Mm-hmm.
drawing's in the book:
Right.
inputs,
Mm-hmm.
function, outputs, and a training
Right.
function which alters the function so that the inputs map to the outputs.
Right.
So an example of this, so that like it becomes concrete, like
Mm-hmm.
you feed this thing images,
Right.
and like maybe it's a refrigerator and an oven and etc. And on the outputs, you write refrigerator and meat, right? And so, like, theoretically speaking, if you got a good training function and you've cycled this enough times, you'll alter F. And
Mm-hmm.
what you're hoping is the continuity of F when given similar inputs, give you similar outputs. So now, even if it's a old oven, it's that's still an oven. We're good, right?
Right.
And that's what the hope is, right?
Yes.
And so, philosophically speaking, if you
Mm-hmm.
think about what would the inputs and outputs be for the human being, maybe at least the initial system,
Mm-hmm.
the inputs would be our experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and the outputs would be the meaning that we're associating with those experiences. And the interesting thing for the human being is that we get to control that meaning. And the problem for the children is that, well, it's typically the adults that are controlling the meaning because they don't know where to derive the meaning from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for any endeavor that we're going on, right? So, like, say I
Right.
want to go play basketball, or say I
Mm-hmm.
want to learn mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
The meaning associated boils down to I can do this, or I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is that the system starts to look for evidence to support whichever direction we're kind of trending towards,
Right.
right? So what we talk about in the book then is the strategies to keep the student on the I can do it path, right? You want to continue and telling them that you can do it. I believe
Right.
you can do it, and right?
Mm-hmm.
And showing them, look, you just put the ball in the hoop. You can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because with mathematics versus basketball, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is the analogy that kind of we introduce also in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of necessary, right? Like English and mathematics, that's the game when it comes to education, right? If we don't teach you to read, write, and speak, and we
Right.
don't teach you at least basic mathematics so that you can work with money,
Right.
then we failed, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so, but with basketball, well, maybe you can want to go play soccer. That's fine. If you want to play baseball, right? Like there's other
Mm-hmm.
options. But over here,
Mm-hmm.
there's no other option. So we need to keep them on the I can't path. You can't let them trend to the I can't path. Um, but yeah, that in a nutshell is this, right? And so like, yeah, like the thing is, I'm not a math person. It's a justification. I can't
Mm-hmm.
do it because I'm not a math person. I'm out. Good.
Hmm. We got to end that. Yes. We have to
Yeah.
end this
Well,
tendency for sure.
you can't allow them to get to the place where okay, that's it. And that's it. I fused it. That's who I am. That's my
Mm-hmm.
identity.
Right. Oh man, this is amazing. This is good. Because I think it's a dilemma that most of us growing up we have this. Even in like in universities, people say, "Oh yeah, I'm choosing this major because I'm not good at." We admit that we're not good at something else, so we kind of give up already.
69% of STEM majors switch majors because of the mathematics requirements. They used to switch to business.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that anymore because now business is so statistically driven, so data driven because of the infiltration of computing devices
Mm-hmm.
that even then these professors are having a hard time conveying some of the most important materials.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up switching to humanities. And the fear point is this now AI, the same silly thing
Mm-hmm.
that I drew there,
Right.
is starting to generate. Like I'm literally trying to write an email with ChatGPT. I'm looking at. I don't like what you did, and I don't know what to tell you to fix it. So maybe I'll write a piece and tell you to end it. Right? Like, how about that?
Right. Right. Oh my. You see? Wow. Wow. And I'll ask you for sure after all this, what do you think is going to be, in terms of AI, because this is a big thing now. So what's going to happen in the future with our kids, and with education, that we are not doing good in math, or we keep ignoring math. I think that's something big is going to happen for us, right?
Well, I think that we know that people need to learn mathematics. I mean, it's the foundation of STEM. I think it's a great thing if
Hmm.
politicians and business people
Hmm.
can speak the same language as the engineers and the scientists. If they could understand the
Hmm.
evidence and the evidence based
Hmm.
stuff that people are producing, right?
Right,
Because
right.
for decades we've known that, like, yeah, okay, fine, the numbers can say any story
Hmm.
that like someone intends them to say, right? We've got evidence that climate change is not happening, or that fossil fuels don't do it, or right? I mean, both
Hmm.
sides of every political issue has evidence behind it at this point. So it's not like we don't know it can't be manipulated. The question is can we identify what's been manipulated, or why, or how, right? Can you read it and understand that this is not
Hmm.
the thing? Identification of truth, which starts philosophically with mathematics, can we measure it?
Hmm.
That's sort of what science is based on. So uh, the challenge is twofold: of like, can we get more of the population to
Hmm.
believe they can do it? Can we get them versed at an age where
Hmm.
it makes sense? So, like, our goal at Elephant Learning was, can we get them those concepts so that they could participate in the classroom? Because if
Hmm.
they could just get to the college level and still understand what people are talking about,
Hmm.
then we're good. And
Right.
actually, what the data shows is, for the 20% of students that do enter the education system
Hmm.
versed, the education system works. So go figure. When the student
Hmm.
comes in able to
Hmm.
understand the teacher,
Right.
they actually learn things from the teacher. I was like, wow. Like,
Right. Right.
so, like, philosophically, it matches the data that we're collecting. So
Hmm.
why don't we see if we can get them to that level? And we believe that's what we've accomplished, because some of our most glowing reviews look like, my students having fun in math class now. And it's like, yeah, if I can
That's it.
understand what we're talking about, this is a new way to solve a problem that I'm already
Right.
familiar with. So this is
Right.
fun.
Right. Right. This is amazing. So this is actually on the part of the folks that are teaching it. So what are the other practical strategies, for instance, that parents can use to overcome this anxiety?
Well, so for the anxiety themselves, it's like
Hmm.
they have overcome it.
Hmm.
Maybe not potentially with mathematics,
Hmm.
but with something, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's always something that a human being has overcome. At
Hmm.
some point, I believe I can do it, and then I prove to myself I can do it.
Hmm.
And so, like, you've overcome that question.
Hmm.
And so the deal is that, like, in the book, in the exercises, a lot of the things is collecting your stories around your experiences, maybe some journaling around it. If you, like, yeah, like, what am I feeling? Like, I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake. Okay, what does it mean? Right? Like,
Hmm.
how do I double check it? How can I fix
Hmm.
it? Right?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, we once you get it on the piece of paper, you can work with it in a way that's different than if it's just roaming around in your head. And then, yeah, I mean, once you believe you can do it, and once you believe other people can do it,
Right.
if it's just a matter of sitting down and trying to understand it,
Hmm.
then that's what you end up doing. So,
My friend, this is good. So for instance, I know like your program can probably personalize you know items. Okay, yeah, this child is not good at this part. Like they need to work on that. But for instance, for a parent that is not really well versed in mathematics, and they're trying to upgrade, like upbring their kids, and what can we do to identify those that, oh yeah, my child is struggling, or you know I'm seeing some signs now. What are the signs? What are the things that we should pay attention as parents?
right. I mean, what we do in
Hmm.
our system is we identify very quickly what is their level of understanding.
Hmm.
And then in our dashboard,
Hmm.
we have actually what would be the teacher training. But in parents in plain language, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
For how would you do this? How would you do this outside of the system? What
Mhm.
could you do to support it
Mhm.
if you want to be more involved? But more than that, right? Like we
Mhm.
have a process that you can run where like you just try the activity
Mhm.
and then you ask the student, well, why do you think this is the right answer? And when you hear their response, you're probably going to be able to clarify the language.
Mhm.
Because, like, at the end of the day, we cover from counting through algebra, and none of the things that we're talking about are I don't think advanced, right? Like they're
Mhm.
fundamental type
Right.
things, and
Right.
so 90% of the time, the parents able to step in, they're able to help their student through our system.
Nice.
Though the book Rethinking Math Learning, the first book I wrote,
Mhm.
was like, hey, how could you try to replicate this at home? And I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, we personalize it for the student at the level of our algorithms were, like created to
Mhm.
quickly determine what does the student understand, what don't they understand, and then
Right.
like, okay, good, now let's fill the gap with those activities that we've known that early education researchers have already shown.
Mhm.
Okay, that's how you fill that gap, that's how you teach that
Nice.
concept, that idea.
Amazing. You have to share all those great resources so that folks can look them up and also get to learn and make sure that our kids they do better. I'm really happy that you are really excited to join us because we need to make our families better in mathematics so that we don't really worry about them with their future.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, if you could get more students going into these STEM paths, then
Hmm.
I don't think you have to worry too much about AI because it's really these algorithms that control the AI. So it's the
Hmm.
human beings that are doing it.
Hmm. Okay, okay, awesome. My friend, so I have a quick question, Aditya. What do you think the next parent on that puzzle should you know what question do you have for them so that we can push the envelope with the fatherhood?
So the questions, I'm
Just any
sorry,
question that you think, let's say from your experience as a dad, and
yeah.
you know as also as a guru in your field, what do you think is the question that next parent as a father we have on the platform with us, should we ask them to answer so that maybe
Oh, what
by them.
question should you ask the next guest?
Yes, please.
Oh, um,
Just you think something that is good that will be helpful with the fatherhood, my friend. You being a father of two and you're working with the math. For instance, I like how we shared about how your son came through and he was writing, like he was doing all kinds of math at your office, just writing up
yeah.
stuff. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be interesting if you had someone. Mm,
Mm.
what's tough for almost every parent is getting kids to eat.
Oh my goodness, yes. Hmm. Yes, yes, yeah, and they don't like the healthy foods. That's the problem too. So we have to kind of be
Yeah,
creative, huh?
it's always like some sort of a bribe of sugar after you eat whatever you don't want to eat.
Right, right. My goodness. And what kind of games you normally play with your kids, or something that you recommend? I'll ask them about that. I'll definitely share about that. But this is another question with you, just personally. What kind of games you normally do with your kids? Whether
We'll,
it's at home or at the park.
yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes we're riding bicycles. Sometimes we're doing activities. I think I tend to maybe I get them to play all of the learning. Sometimes we're watching a movie together. Sometimes, my second grader, he learned to play chess this year. It was like an after school for chess.
Hmm.
So that I think that one was interesting because I like that it causes him to think a couple steps ahead.
Right, right.
Um,
Amazing.
so, but like I've had challenges getting him to maybe play some of the board games earlier on. So
Hmm.
maybe it was just an age thing. Maybe now he'll
Right.
sit down and concentrate and do it.
There you go. There you go. Awesome, my friend. Thanks so much for really doing this. I appreciate you. Um, how can folks find you and find your great books, my friend?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for putting this all together. And if you check out elephantlearning.com, you'll find out about the software
Hmm.
and also our math anxiety programs,
Hmm.
but also the book. Both books are available there or through Amazon.
Hmm.
And you can always follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn. We're always sharing resources.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and really for all the other fathers, or anybody listening as a parent, because this is something very useful for the community, really, not just dads. So, sometimes we have families where mom is the only one available. Please go ahead and follow my friend on his social media and check out his resources that he provided. I'll be sharing them in our, in our links, and then also. Just remember that it's never too early, to teach your kids, to love them, to develop this love for math. It's never too early, and of course, it's never too late. So please do that, and thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, keep puzzling. Thank you, my friend.